My name is Monica Davidson and I'm a creative industries specialist. On the one hand, I'm a creative practitioner and I have been all my life. I'm a writer and a filmmaker. I've also run my own creative business, starting from freelancing all the way through to now running several companies, and I've been doing that for almost 30 years. But for the last 15 years, I've also been helping other creative practitioners with their business skills. 2016 is the third year that I'll be facilitating Art Business Basics as well. A goal is a word that is bandied around a great deal when it comes to planning for business or for life, and I think it can sometimes be a bit of a confusing word. The way I like to think of a goal, though, is that a goal is a measurement of success. So for every different person, success is really personal. It's a really subjective concept. And I think that's the most important thing when we're thinking about goals. We need to think about, well, what's my version of success? In all the different realms of my business, financially, in terms of marketing, in terms of business development, what would my life look like if I was successful? That's how you can easily define a goal. And what I find interesting about creative practitioners is that we certainly have financial goals. We certainly want to feel, financially comfortable or financially safe. But financial reward isn't usually a primary motivator for us. We have other motivators: happiness, personal satisfaction, creative drive. So it's important that all your different versions of success get addressed when you're coming up with your goals for both your business and your life. There's a common acronym that's used to describe goals and the goal setting process, and that's SMART. Now, SMART stands for specific, measurable, action-based, realistic, and timely. I think it is really important that your goals be specific. That's ideal. The more specific your goal is, the more likely it is that you'll be able to visualize it and then brainstorm around the milestones that you need to achieve in order to get there. And that's also important when it comes to measurement. All goals need to be measured to see whether or not they're still accurate, whether or not they're still whether or not it's still what you want to do. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to move in different directions. Action-based is great because it makes every goal practical. It's not just about what do I want, but what do I have to do in order to get there. It's kind of the realistic part that I struggle with, because again, I think goals are very subjective and realistic is equally subjective, So this is in no way meaning to big note myself, but in my current roster of clients, I have 2 Emmy winners and an Oscar winner. Now, none of them thought that they were ever going to win an Emmy or an Oscar. So realistic is a really subjective idea. Timely or time-based means that sort of links back to being specific. So if you do have whatever your specific goal is, it needs to also be attached to time. When would you like to see this version of success achieved? It's one of the things that I've found that my clients really struggle with is the lack of accountability. Most of us are familiar with accountability. We're accountable to our parents when we're younger, we're accountable to our tutors when we're students, we're even accountable to our friends and family. But when you launch yourself into self-employment, whether you're freelance or running a larger organisation, there really isn't anybody in charge. And that's wonderful in lots of ways. It means you get to, be at home in your jammies more often than you normally would have been. But it also means that there's no one there telling you what to do. There's no one there to say, this is what needs to be done next. This is what we're working towards. And that lack of accountability is very often the thing that sets people adrift in their creative business. It seems wonderful, but it's actually incredibly difficult. And we sometimes end up putting that accountability in places where it shouldn't be. So frequently people say things to me like, oh, I'm doing this because my accountant told me to. That's not actually how that power structure is supposed to work. You don't work for your accountant works for you. But in the complete absence of a boss, people will put inappropriate people into that position. I think a healthier way of running a business and being accountable is to put goals in that position. So rather than being accountable to a boss, learning how to set goals and meet your goals is a way of being accountable to what you want. In essence, each goal or each large goal becomes your manager, and that's why it's so important. One of the key things that people need to remember about goals is that there is no right or wrong. Again, frequently people that I speak to feel like they shouldn't or they can't set goals just in case those goals don't actually happen. Creating a goal isn't the same thing as making a wish with your fairy godmother. Creating a goal just means putting a measurement system in place, putting a measurement of accountability in place. As you work towards that goal, it's perfectly likely that you might change your mind. Or maybe the timeline that you put in place isn't going to happen. Or maybe there are outside external factors that are going to impact on whether or not you actually get there. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong. There's just, is this working? Is this not working? Is this still what I want or not? And I think the most important thing about your goals is not just to simply set them and leave them there. The most important thing about goals is to revisit them frequently and make sure that they are still your boss, that they are still that measurement of accountability that you want to work towards. Lots of people are great at setting goals, they're just a bit rubbish at meeting goals. I mean, that's the thing about New Year's resolutions. You know, we all set them, we just don't actually meet them. I think the trick to meeting your goals or to actually realising your goals is not just to set one big goal and then just leave it there. The trick is to set the big goal and then create smaller milestones or deadlines that help you to get there. And, you know, sometimes I like to analogize that by talking about travel. You know, I would really like to go to Paris. Well, I'm not just going to sit here and wait for that to actually happen. Going to Paris means, you know, saving up some money, buying a ticket, thinking about where I want to stay, getting my passport, getting my visa. There's lots of smaller steps that can get me to Paris. And once you start breaking down those smaller steps, then it suddenly becomes a lot more manageable. But I think another important part of that process is that all creative practitioners, as far as I know, are deadline focused. That's the way we work when we're working for our clients, or if we're students, when we're working on assignments. We all work quite comfortably with a deadline. So a goal, or the milestones that you need to achieve in order to get to that goal, are self-imposed deadlines. The trick is to treat them with the same degree of seriousness and respect as you would a goal that was set for you by somebody else. That's actually the harder part. The goal setting process, I believe, is truly the secret to actually making a creative business work, because establishing that level of accountability gives you something to be working towards. But more importantly, I think that if you take the goal setting process seriously, it also means that you're starting to take your practice seriously. Unfortunately, we live in a society that doesn't really respect the arts all that much. We live in a society that keeps telling us that we should get proper jobs. You know, we have education facilities that don't encourage us to think about our creative practice as a business or as a legitimate form of employment. It's really easy to get out there into the world and feel like what you're doing is a bit silly or a bit stupid. I think that's changing. I really hope that's changing. But I think it also has to change from within. We have to start taking what we do seriously. We have to start valuing what we do. We have to start respecting ourselves and our practice and our business as much as we respect our clients or our funders, if not more. Because eventually you can grow a business to the point where you are no longer dependent on individual grant providers or individual clients. You're dependent on the business that you built. And the goal setting process and taking that seriously is a simple and effective first step towards that larger vision.